Morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's edition of the MPC Markets Morning Call, 11th of March, 2026. Markets whipsawed. They were all over the shop overnight. Equities largely finished unchanged. Really, I mean, for the same reason, this is going to be a really short morning call this morning, is there's a fair bit of misinformation out there as it stands at the moment. There's Hormuz confusion. Look, I don't know whether it's a tactic or whether it's stupidity. The Trump administration saying one thing. There's been tweets from defense secretaries saying that an escorted ship's been, gone through the Strait of Hormuz. Then CNN's turned around and said, well, we don't, we've got a camera there. It absolutely hasn't. Then the tweet's been deleted. Then the press secretary's come out and said the words facts and verified so many times that it was actually genuinely suspicious. So realistically, believe nothing at this point, because I think the BS meter or the misinformation or propaganda machine is just in full flight, and I don't think either side is particularly giving any, showing any truthiness at all. So we'll just try and focus on, the equity market, as you can see, it's a fairly modelled heat map there. Like, there's not much movement, to be brutally honest. Oracle actually jumped about 8 or 10% in the aftermarket, which would be a huge sigh of relief, I would have thought, from Oracle shareholders. Given everyone was worried about their debt, but their cloud revenue was actually better than expected, and it's something that they definitely needed to do given the amount of debt they've taken on board. It's quite frightening. That's obviously positive news. The Australian dollar hit a 3-year high. Deputy Governor Hauser, hawkish warning on inflation, and which sent it up, to 71.70, I believe. Oil fell away below 80 at one stage, apparently. Pretty much I think that overall, my opinion, and this is obviously not financial advice, you got to consider it yourself, but given we've been to nearly 120, I would imagine that blow off top will probably hold. But look, it's very cheap for Iran with naval mines, which no one mentioned until Trump mentioned it, which was, again, either genius or the dumbest move in history. But the threat of naval mines is no good for their economy either, because it would keep the Strait of Hormuz shut for ages. But they do have a small island that they invaded or whatever, that's near a couple of kilometres through that narrowest point of Hormuz, which has all of their drones and their drone swarm technology. They actually have spent quite a bit and of time and money on their drone technology and their drone force, I suppose you want to call it. I think their air force is some of the planes may have been used in the original Top Gun movie in 1983. But as far as their drone force go, they're relative to the rest of the world. They're actually quite they're quite advanced. They've got long range, short range, and drone swarms, and that is cheap. So that and even the threat of naval mines in a space that short and that shallow is enough to shut the Strait of Hormuz down for a very long time, essentially. Military ships have avoidance systems for naval mines, but not all of them do, and cargo ships definitely don't. But the drone thing is enough. They're spending $1 for every probably $100,000 that has to be spent to defend it. So it's a cheap way of doing it, and it's a way of it's the only way they're going to get leverage essentially in this negotiation process, because the Trump's Trump's claim of winning is nowhere near. There's nothing in any press outside of the US. Or communication from the Trump administration that suggests that this is anywhere near done. But markets are having these massive moves in the US session, and they're just believing everything Trump says and reacting. But the truth of the matter is that I think oil prices anywhere in these 80s is probably pretty damn good buying, considering your downside risk is maybe $10. But if this continues, if they actually find a naval mine, which Trump apparently has claimed that they've already blown up all of them, which he hasn't. If they actually even find one in the water, that the oil will probably jump 30%. So but as I say, it's not in the best interest of the Iranian economy to do it either. So it would be a last resort. You would expect to see at least threats first, but that is a significant risk. Look, we've had silver start to recover, gold as well, copper, platinum, crude drift. It was only down a couple really, but the was down over 10% at one stage. I think, as I say, I think this is really good buying territory here. You probably want to be having a look at Drone Shield again as well, because if there is a drone attack that takes out a ship that goes through there, if it's at reasonable prices, there's a high chance that there's going to be money funneled towards that. Particularly after the Russian-Ukraine, it's just going to become more and more of a thing. Coal just corrected, but we've, it was a fairly big down night, but it has been on fire overall, and as the highest prices has been forever. So you probably want to have a look at maybe, potentially trimming it if you've been a long sufferer in coal and you wanted to get out. Now's probably not the worst time in the world to be having a look at that. Software survivors, enhanced growth, investment. We'll close this Friday. Kai and I have the webinar today. If you haven't registered, you're going to have to register very, very soon in the next half an hour. It's because it's nearly full actually. Apart from that, which surprises me not more than just as much as anyone. That's at 11:30 today. There's obviously an investment attached to it, but the actual webinar will be far more educational. You can send in your questions. The Q&A is going to be probably the meatiest part of the webinar. So and there will be an on-demand which you can register for as well. But if you had Mosaic, you would just get it. So scan the QR code there, get your first month free, you got four recommendation services for stocks. You get all the content, all the actionable strategies to keep up to date in these turbulent times, based on the response to the Trump truthiness meter that I came up with just as a bit of a laugh yesterday. People seem to like that, so we'll keep doing that. You would get all sorts of quirky things like that as well, and our interactive investment maps and things like that. So scan the code. It's available desktop, Apple Store, Google Play, Android Store. Short one today really. I think GQG had a small announcement around fund inflows. That stock's been recovering. And apart from that, I don't think there's too much corporate news. So have a great day. If you can, tune into the webinar at 11:30, which is in about an hour and a half from now. Cheers, bye. General advice warning. The content presented in this presentation is intended for informational purposes only and provides general advice only. It does not take into account your personal objectives, financial situation, or specific needs. This information should not be the sole resource when making investment decisions. We strongly recommend you seek the advice of a financial professional.